Good afternoon from England, everyone. I hope you can all hear me clearly. I'm sure that Iona will tell me if you can't. My name's Gwyneth March. I've been working in advertising since the 1980s, and I've been training within the industry for over 18 years. I teach the Demystifying Advertising course here in the UK on behalf of the trade body in the UK, which is called the IPA. And I'm also lucky enough to man the help desk for the foundation certificate worldwide, including the EAC foundation certificate, where I work closely with Iona and Tamara. So, what can advertising do and not do? Well, the first thing I want to say is that some of you graduates may be a little bit worried that they have joined a very silly industry that isn't very reputable and can't achieve very much. But you mustn't think like that. You must stand tall, because advertising can do a fantastic number of things. And this has been known for a long time. The first advertising was in Pompeii. So the Romans, they knew all about the power of advertising. So, what fantastic things can advertising actually do? Well, its biggest role is in creating brands. My old account director used to say, you can tell if it's a brand because you can charge more for it. And I thought that was a very good rule of thumb. Coke is valued at nearly $70 billion, and it's not because there are billions of bottles in the warehouses. It's because the brand itself and the leveraging of the brand can make a lot of money for the parent company. So, it can create brands. So, how can you tell if you have a brand? Well, one way is the charging more money, but the other is basically to say, are people aware of it? And advertising is incredibly good at creating awareness. I'd like you to try a little quiz. I'm going to show you part of a logo and see if you can guess the brand before I show you the whole logo. Easy. I'm sure you're all getting these. Fantastic. This one's harder. Anyone get Harley Davidson? I wonder. It's actually a very difficult one. Now, I bet that you got all of those. And that is because advertising is very good at creating awareness. You're just naturally aware of these things. So I hope you got on very well. Another thing that advertising can do is it can change behaviour. This is a campaign that's been running in the United Kingdom for 30 years. And it's to persuade people to wear seatbelts. Clunk, click with every trip. Now, when I was a child, no one wore a seatbelt. In fact, people believed that if you did, you would be trapped in the car when you crashed. Whereas in fact, what happens to you if you're not wearing a seatbelt is that you go through the windscreen. So advertising sought to change behaviour, which is really, really hard to change people's behaviour. But over the course of 30 years, it became absolutely acceptable to wear a seatbelt. And advertising is the reason for that. Another thing that advertising can do is it can make money. Now, this is an illustration from a famous campaign, the Perception Reality campaign for Rolling Stone magazine. And Rolling Stone were absolutely delighted with how well this campaign worked. In fact, the publisher of Rolling Stone magazine said it was like someone came in with a wheelbarrow of money and dumped it on the floor. They saw an enormous return on investment. Here in the UK, we have got 30 years of advertising effectiveness awards, and there are, of course, the European effectiveness awards called the Effies. All these case studies prove that advertising can make money. Okay, something that you might not have considered is that you now work in an industry that can create jobs. A wonderful story was told to me recently of an account director on the Muller yogurt campaigns. And he met a group of people from his hometown, and they were quite rude about his career. And he said, well, what do you do? And they talked about how they, were fishermen, or they did this or they did that. And they asked him what he did that had contributed. And he said, our campaign for Muller yogurt has been so successful, we're building another factory which will employ 500 people. So successful advertising can create jobs and prosperity for everyone, not just for the brand. Another role that advertising has is it can set the record straight. So for example, when oven chips came along, they were so delicious that everyone assumed they must be rolling in fat. Previously, people had fried chips and they did taste very good, but they were full of fat. And so McCain, the market leader, had to explain that their chips had only 5% fat, so you can have your chips and eat them. They've had some very successful campaigns, McCain. My favourite was an animated group of chips doing press-ups on a beach, which showed you that the chips were fit chips. So, what else can it do? Well, one of the wonderful things about advertising is that it can work in any media. I give you an example here from a long-running campaign by The Economist magazine. Now, The Economist are trying to persuade successful people to read The Economist. And one of the ways that they do this is by flattering them. So, for example, here, if you were looking out of a high office, you would see the top of a bus that said, "Hello to all our readers in high office." Another example, wonderful, interactive poster. Whenever anyone walked past the poster, the light bulb would go on. This flatters the people who read The Economist and has been proven to mean that they are much more likely to continue to buy it. So, advertising is remarkable. It can work in all sorts of media. However, advertising can't do everything. First of all, there's so many other things that have to be right. And here's a really clunky chart showing you the 7 Ps. And you'll notice that advertising is only one part of one of the 7 Ps. So it does not have godlike powers. Lots of other things have to be right. So, for example, it can't make you buy. You might have seen an ad for Kellogg's Crunchy Nut Cornflakes and think, oh yes, I like Crunchy Nut Cornflakes. And you go into the supermarket and a perfectly good alternative brand is offering you what's known as a bog-off, a buy one, get one free. Well, you're going to take the bog off, because as David Ogilvy said, the consumer's not an idiot, she's your wife. So it can't make you buy. The other thing that's true about advertising is that it can't target only those likely to buy. No matter how tightly targeted your media, there will always be wastage. So for example, even if you advertise your caravan for sale in Camping and Caravanning Direct website, you will not get everyone who wants to buy a caravan, or even people who are in the market. So it can't target only those likely to buy. There will always be wastage. Now, some media obviously have a much higher wastage than others. And one of the attractive things about all of the routes for digital is that they have less wastage on the whole, and also arguably better data, but that is arguable. So, what else can't it do? This is really important. It can't make a bad product good. My advice for the rest of your careers is that if you have a client whose brand that you are advertising isn't very good, advise the client to spend money on improving the product rather than advertising it. Because your advertising will actually help your client go out of business faster, not make them money. I'll give you an example. If there is a low-fat cereal bar snack and your advertising says that it is delicious, if it is not delicious, people will not only fail to buy it a second time, but they will alter their brand buying habits, and they will tell all their friends, sometimes on social media, how bad it is. And the advertising will have just helped put the client out of business faster. So advertising should always tell the truth well, not try to make a bad product good, in my opinion. And in the opinion, it has to be said, of Leo Burnett. The final thing that advertising can do is it can give you a wonderful career. Not just in the 50s, 60s and 70s, but right now. It's an incredible industry to work in. You are never bored, and so advertising can give you a fantastic career. Thank you very much for listening to me for the last 15 minutes. Please refer to the EAC website for upcoming talks and other webinars. This webinar has been filmed, so will be available for you and for other students who weren't able to make it. I'm going to find out now if there are any questions. If there are questions, I will say who's asked it, and I will say what the question is. Hope that's okay. Thank you very much for your time in this quick canter through what advertising can and cannot do. Thank you for your comments, Aj. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you find it interesting. Okay, so Iona has got a question, and she says, in times of digital revolution and the internet, do you think that advertising will be able to do more? It's a good question. I think that one of the things that the rise of digital has meant is it just gives us more options. It's just another way to reach people. It also has allowed us to have something that is quicker to produce often, and also it allows us to have much more data. Now, sometimes that data is very seductive. So, for example, you have a click-through rate and you think, bingo, we've sold the product. And it doesn't work quite like that. But it has given us a lot more ways to reach the consumer. And I hope that's able to answer your question, Iona. Okay, I can see a lot of people are typing, so I'll just wait for the first comment to come through. Just getting some thanks from people, which is great. Just waiting to see if there's any other questions. Oh, about 3 or 4 people. Oh, thank you. I'm getting a lot of thanks. And that's very nice to hear that it was interesting and informative. I really appreciate that. Okay, we've got another excellent question. Apologies if I don't pronounce your name correctly. Natalija, beautiful name. Can you clarify the remark about telling the truth well? So not just telling the truth, how do you explain the well? An excellent question. When I worked at McCann Erickson for many years, our company slogan was truth well told. And the idea was that you should obviously tell the truth about the product. The idea of the well is that you should tell it in the most compelling, exciting, possibly educational, entertaining way possible. There's been an enormous amount of work done by scientists and experts that tell us that people make choices based on both rational and also emotional ways. So if you're going to tell an advertising story well, you generally need to appeal to people's rational side, but also their emotional side. So you might, for example, point out how good Nestle's Cheerios are for you because they've got whole grains, but at the same time you would do an entertaining commercial that made mothers and children laugh and made mums feel like they'd be a good mum if they bought this product. So you would be telling the truth, but hopefully you would be telling it well. So I hope that that explains that. Please say if it doesn't, and I will try to say what I meant. I see that someone else is typing, so we'll just see if there's any other questions there. Okay. Do you think advertising is capable of changing perceptions of a brand from bad to good? If so, do you have any examples? So, Mariana. Thank you for saying that you enjoyed the presentation. So let's just have a quick look again and see what your question was. Do you think advertising is capable of changing perceptions of a brand from bad to good? If so, do you have any examples? Ooh, that's a really good question. You might, for example, look at advertising that's been done for political parties. And generally, they are one of the few brands that often have a bad reputation. And you could argue that one of the ways that political advertising works is that it improves the image of that political party. However, it's fair to say that generally the public would have to be in the mood for that political party changing its image at that point. They would probably have to be cross with their existing brand that were the government of the day. Most marketeers would generally not advise spending money on a brand who had their reputation become poor. However, say a brand had suffered a sudden dip in its reputation. So, for example, there had been a food scare or there had been a plane crash. Advertising and indeed PR, I think, have a definite role to play in addressing the sudden poor perceptions that people might have of a brand. And I think this is where sometimes you get campaigns where people will say that they're sorry that something happened and they're going to improve. An example was the horse meat scandal in the UK, where what happened was it was revealed that some Tesco burgers had horse meat in them, and they were being advertised and stocked as being 100% beef. And Tesco took out advertising correctly, in my opinion, apologising to its loyal customers, saying what they were going to do about it, and I don't believe that it will have affected their brand at all, because people are very forgiving if you apologise and explain. So that was a very long answer. Yes, advertising can help something that is bad go to good, but generally only if there has been a dip in a brand's fortunes and not a catastrophe, and also if consumers are perhaps annoyed with a competitor brand. Otherwise, it's not a good idea to spend the money. Generally, you would be better to put your investment behind something else. I see that we've got a message from Joke. I think that is not a role of advertising alone, like it was mentioned in the presentation. Joke, I don't know if you want to explain that. Maybe I addressed that as part of what I answered Mariana, but I might not have done. So please do say if that wasn't what you were talking about. As I've said, it can sometimes be a role for advertising, but it is quite rare. So I hope that that has explained it all. So I'm just waiting to see what Joke says. Mariana's saying that that explained everything. Yeah, and I think that Joke is quite happy as well. Lovely, thank you, that's great. Any other questions, guys? I've got plenty of time. I'm very happy to continue to answer questions from anyone. Please just say, I know that you're very busy students and young professionals. So I've got quite a few people typing now. Just see what they're saying. See that Sarge is typing. Oops, no, nothing's coming through. Iona, I can see that people are typing, but then nothing comes through, so it just refreshes the previous comments. So I don't know what's happening there. We'll just give them a little bit longer, guys. I think it might be because multiple attendees are typing. So we'll see what happens. Here we go. Sarge, while we were talking about from bad to good perception, Isn't that the role of crisis communication? Yes, I think that's a very fair point, and that's why I said that I thought that PR has a big role to play here, which is obviously, alongside advertising, one of the things that makes up the 7 Ps and the promotion P. And I think that good PR is worth quite a lot. You've also got to be very careful about how you handle things. An example that came to mind was for Waitrose supermarket in the UK, and they had launched a digital campaign where they asked people to say what Waitrose meant to them, and it got hijacked by people joking. And Waitrose is a very expensive supermarket in the UK, and so people were saying, oh, Waitrose is special to me because I don't need to shop with people who don't have a pony. And so making fun of shoppers at Waitrose. And Waitrose very sensibly thanked people for the funny comments and said that everyone had had a good laugh and were really nice about it, and then just quietly closed that campaign down. And I think that they handled it as well as you can under those circumstances. There's nothing more you can do other than put on a brave face, be polite, not get cross, and move on. So that's a very good point about crisis communications. Sarge has also said, and in this case, also you have to tell the truth. Yes, I think that's a very, very good point. You should obviously always tell the truth under any circumstances, because apart from anything else, it's wrong to lie, and you shouldn't need to unless you've got a terrible product, in which case you shouldn't be advertising it anyway. So lying is both dishonest and, as Leo Burnett says, it costs you money. So I think we can hold our heads up high, because I do think that good communications just tell a truth and allow the consumer to have the truth and make a choice. Okay guys, I don't know if we've got any more questions. I don't see anyone else typing. So Iona, I don't know if there is anyone else who wants to know anything at this stage. Just getting thanked. And I think we might be about to close down, guys. Iona's thanking everyone. Don't see... Oh, I see maybe one more person typing. Renaud? I beg your pardon if I've got your name wrong. Oh, no, just getting some thanks. Okay, so please contact us if you need any more, and we will let you know the answers. Thank you so much for your time, everyone, and have very successful careers. Goodbye.